And good afternoon, everybody. How are you today? Something like that.
And why is this not playing?
It says live. I see it right there.
I know it's live. I know. But again, super producer Mike Monte in the house fucking this up. Hold on.
And we will be riding high. And we will be riding high. Damn, damn, damn. Damn. Bam, 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 bam.
There
There
you
you go,
go.
Mike. We're
Perfect.
in.
Thank you for that. Because God knows I fucking needed it.
Jesus
Oh my
God
God.
Almighty.
Here we go. Starting off great. Fucking fuck. This is not going to be pretty, Jimmy. It's not
Oh,
going to
who
be pretty.
cares? It's wrestling. Wrestling's not supposed to be pretty.
Well, again. All right. Well, let's start with the show. Jimmy, how are you, buddy? Welcome back to another fucking fucked up Thursday night.
Ooh, that's a hell of a fucking hello. I'm pretty much crusty from drinking too much last night, but
Yeah,
other
what's the
than that,
deal? What was going on, man? What was going on?
it was Zach, McDaniel's birthday. Well, today is technically Zach's birthday. So last night we went to the Mexican restaurant that we love to go to, and a bunch of beers later, drafts were 2 for 1, and a shot of tequila. I took a shot of tequila. It's not really my speed, but I took it. And all I remember is blacking out and waking up at 2 o'clock in the morning. I had to do my chores. There's cat litter to be scooped.
Dude, I meant to ask you, you do enjoy drinking, though, I think, right?
I do, but as I'm getting older, it drains me.
Yeah.
I try to explain that to people. I'm not sure they get it, but it really drains me. I feel very, very drained the next day, and I suspect it lowers my resistance. And being a public servant of sorts, not a pubic servant, a public servant of sorts, I come across a lot of germs. I would have to assume. So I notice when I drink too much, I tend to get sick. And now it's raining. You know why it's raining? Because we started the show. That's why it's
Dude,
raining.
I gotta tell you, every
Yeah.
time I speak to you, it's fucking raining. And
Right.
again,
Right.
wait a minute. All right, dude, I gotta be honest with you. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody out there, I gotta tell you guys, this new studio has been a fucking nightmare. Um, Abe left. Abe had some decent, great controls. We fucking miss him. I can't get a decent goddamn producer. And now I'm shooting from the Monte Cave where the lighting sucks. I don't want to put money into this, right? So, I got windows. I got to listen to my fucking wife complain. Oh, you fucking light from your windows coming out there. And you don't ask the right questions, because now she's involved. Last week, what kind of questions are those?
Don't ask that one. Ask this one.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. I mean,
That's
Jimmy,
great.
I told you. You called me. You go, what'd you think?
Yeah.
I just listened to my wife for 45 fucking minutes tell me that you and I, all we did was talk about everybody else but the ladies. What did you think
Right.
about that comment?
Well, I know getting to meet the ladies at the gathering. Listen, Moolah was the center of their universe. Okay, all they talked to me off camera for the most part was about their time with Moolah. It's the most important part of their upbringing into this business. They talked about Moolah because that's what they talked about. And she is the most fascinating portion of their careers because that's where they got started, and that's where Leilani hit her heights in the business, and Judy did same. You know what I mean? So look, Moolah was their Obi-Wan Kenobi, period.
Yeah,
And
but Jimmy, my wife said no. No, we don't know what the fuck. We fucked that all up. See, this is what I get. I get nothing fucking bullshit all the time in my household, and you get, Jimmy, I love you.
oh, are you? I knew you were going to do that. You see, folks, before we got on the air, Karen popped into Wahoo Saloon here and said, "I love you," and I said, "I love you back." And Mike almost threw up in his mouth. I'm like, "What's wrong with you, Mike? What is wrong with you?"
Dude, I love the fact that she loves you, dude. I can count on my
Oh,
hands
so do I.
5 You see, I'm even more fucked up here. Can't even get the right camera 5 times. How many
Yeah.
times my wife tells me she loves me? You know what I mean?
I can't get it either. Wait. I can't get it in. There's 5.
Whatever, dude. It's
Unbelievable.
like, you know what? It's like we built this show around high production, and now we're fucking doing videos like every other fucking cretin out there. Like that word, cretin?
What a set. What a set.
Yeah. Well. So here we are in my
Here
man
we are.
cave with my fucking stupid ass pictures behind me with a
Yeah.
fucking headset on. I can't line myself up. You know what I mean? It's like, what the fuck? I'm trying to fucking look this way, read a fucking script.
Mike, you're
God,
doing great. Okay, I personally feel you're doing
Jimmy,
great. So don't be so hard on
you're
yourself.
being very kind. Listen,
Uh,
dude, there's nothing worse than watching. Listen, we're not two schmucks, but watching two schmucks on the camera talking about
yeah,
fucking wrestling,
yeah.
fucking annoying.
Well,
All
you
right,
know
anyway,
what? I got to be consistent, though. I mean, you're right. You are right. Sometimes you'll do spots on other people's shows, and you're like, "What'd you think?" I was like 2 hours and 25 minutes with four guys in their room.
in a
No,
box, yeah, four guys
right?
in a box. I
No,
agree,
I
and
get it.
not only that, it's
At
like
least we're interesting.
every
You got to look
time
at it that way.
you sound good. Every time I'm on, I sound like I'm in a fucking echo chamber. So when
Yeah,
I even when you try to listen to it, it's awful. That's why I was saying, guys, tell me out there. I
you
took a
sound
headset
good.
from work. Jimmy says I sound good. Can you
Yeah,
tell me how I sound, guys?
you
Be
sound
honest,
good
because
tonight. I think
every
it's
time
nice
I
and
listen, it
clear.
sounds like a fucking echo.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And again, it's Thursday night, and we get to compete with the NFL opening night with Kansas City. And by the way, Jimmy and I are starting a channel called Two for the Monty, where we're going to give our predictions for football. But listen, of course, I didn't get it off the ground yesterday. Jimmy was partying. I was having a fucking bad day, as I always do. I have more bad days than I
Jesus
did
God.
good days in my life. So,
Uh,
so we
breathe.
didn't get it off the ground. The first game is here. But just so people know, okay, I am a legit football handicapper, and I can make people a lot of money. But here's the deal. It's going to cost people. I'm not giving away my information for free. Okay. But I can guarantee this. I stopped betting football a couple of years ago. After my surgery, I was bored sitting in this fucking shithole I'm filming from right now. And I was like,
Jesus.
fuck it. I'll bet football. Right. But again, now you have all those legal betting sites, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, sure.
So I'm betting, and I'm winning. So I won about $9,000, Jimmy. Okay, in 7 weeks.
Okay.
Do you know that you have to pay taxes
Oh
on
yeah.
your winnings? But hold on. If you bet $1,000 and you lose it, you
Yeah.
lose it. If you
Right.
bet $1,000, you win $1,000 in football, right? It's always even money, right? Okay.
Right.
You have to pay capital gains on $2,000.
Oof.
How fucking ridiculous. I said, fuck that. I'm finding a fucking bookie. Fuck
How
that
can
shit.
how consistent of the government? Oh, that's
No, but it's a friggin' joke, man.
yeah. Yeah. Sounds painful. But you
This guy,
obviously
Total
got good at it.
Disaster, just came across. He says, just came across your live stream, and are these two guys lawyers or professionals or something? No, dude, I'm a
Lawyers.
professional. I'm a professional jackass. That's what
I'm
I
a
am.
lawyer? Oh my
You look
God.
like a
No way.
lawyer.
I
Longest
do.
head lawyer in the history of the
I,
world,
I
bro.
think I need a lawyer more than I am a lawyer, but okay, go ahead.
So anyway, on the main show, and again, if I could line myself up, at least you're even. I'm sitting there trying to line myself up.
All
Um,
right.
we've got Billy Edie, the Mass Superstar, on but today's show, RJ Hudson says gambling tax. I know, a bunch of bullshit. It's fucking government, man. We're talking about Vince McMahon today, bud. We're going to talk about Vince McMahon, hero or villain, but I thought we're going to go and we're going to open up with the Hulkster.
Brother.
Hulk Hogan wrestled in WCW for nearly 7 years, a six-time WCW champion. Really? Is that really true?
That is correct.
He is making the claim that he never used his creative control. What do you think of that, Jimmy?
Nonsense. I don't believe that. Come on, cut that out. I'm sure he used it many times. Wasn't he like not a fan of having to put over Bret Hart and stuff like that? Look, he put a lot of people over in his career. We've talked about the fact that Hogan gets too much abuse sometimes from the fans, but
Right.
I'm sure he used his creative control. Come on, Hulkster, what are you talking about? I'm
Without
sure
a
he did.
doubt. Oh,
Yeah,
Maria Davis with the 5 spot. Maria, you are so kind. Let me tell you something about
Maria.
Maria Davis. And
Thank
Maria,
you.
I feel bad I didn't send you flowers when you were getting your knee operation.
At least I know if they came from you. At least I know if they came from you, they would have been genuine. I
Well,
mean, geez.
that's what I'm trying to say. It's like it
Ah,
would be genuine.
that is,
You know what I'm
boy,
saying?
you are filled with water in that water pistol tonight, Mike. You were just shooting every kid you
Well,
see.
dude, I just can't believe it's like,
I know.
uh,
I
hey,
already know.
hey, are you able to do this? This was last week. Oh, no problem. I get there and she's
Right,
like fucking scratching her head like fucking
right,
Curly from the Three Stooges.
right,
I don't know how to do this. I don't
right.
know how to do this. I don't know
And
how
and
to do
and
this.
who says when they're supposed to be representing a business that they work for. You know, you might have to go to another studio. I can't do Thursdays. Might have
Yeah,
to go to another.
well, that's a whole other
Might
thing.
have to go to another studio. Do you own
I
it? You're
I
speaking
had
for
to
the
reach
owner
out to
now.
Abe on
What?
his own time. Can you train her? Yeah, no problem. He calls me over the weekend. She goes, she won't pick up the phone. I had to call the owner of the studio. He goes, oh man, I'll have to check with her. Dude, it's like Savali times 10. This is like, I would never think that it
Wow.
could get worse than guys. We started a place called Village Connection, and it's Jimmy's biggest nightmare. He fucking hated that place. And we moved on to indie music, which he spent a lot of time. And we loved indie music. You know what I mean?
Well, to be
Um,
fair, I did enjoy Village for a while. You
you
know,
did. You did in the
I
beginning.
mean,
We didn't. You didn't know better
let's
though.
be
You
fair.
didn't know. We didn't know better, right?
Well, my senses were kind of on early, which we don't have to go through that again. But yeah, you know what I mean. But I did have some fun there. Of course, I did.
Listen, for all the youngsters out there, before we continue on the show, I just want to give some advice. Me and Jimmy are old. Don't get married, dude. Don't get
What?
married. Be single.
What kind of advice is that? That's not an across the
Phil said he
board
loved
state.
indie music. We loved it too. This shithole Tin
Yeah.
Mirror, I gotta tell you, I'm fucking
Oh
done with
God,
them.
here we go.
I'm done. I'm done.
All right.
I
Well,
write the guy,
apparently,
I'm like, I'm pulling the plug. Let's talk about it. What do you want to talk about? You're fucking destroying the show me and Jimmy did. Now we're just like every fucking Mama Luke out there.
Mama
Fuck.
Luke.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Does Vito know you use the word Mama Luke?
Wait, dude, I'm sorry. I'm watching this guy, Total Disaster. He says, I think this guy was here once before. It's kind of hard to understand these guys with their high class words they use. I feel like I'm a college class listening to high class.
We have heard from this guy
This
before.
guy, yeah, this guy's been
That's
around.
right. We're lawyers
This
and
guy's
physicians.
been around.
Hell,
dude.
I mean, right now I'm developing rocket fuel in the tool shed in the back. So, might be onto something. He
All
might
right,
be onto something.
last night on AEW, the main attraction was Hangman Page burnt down Swerve Strickland's house that he brought from his parents. What do you think of that angle, bro? And of course,
Boy,
I didn't put the picture up, so that's a whole.
boy, I tell you, I am so buying this pay-per-view. I haven't been this upset since the neighborhood bully ripped my GI Joe doll's head off. I'm very upset. Very upset. What a terrible thing to do to somebody.
When is it okay to like burn someone's house down? I gotta get that, Jimmy. I don't understand.
Are the police looking for him? I mean, you can't burn somebody's house down. That's a crime.
Here's the problem: no one's watching, so no one. What is it like if a tree falls in the forest? No one hears it. If a house burns down on TBS, no one saw it.
Besides, we saw Randy do this to Bray years ago.
Oh, that's true. That's so true.
Once again, points for no originality over in AEW. I'm like,
wrestling's cyclical, right? What do you think of that? It just keeps coming around and around and around. I guess eventually you just run out of angles, right?
Yeah. Wow, is it raining here? Oh my God.
Guess what though? You can't hear it.
Oh, well, that's good because I can, but wow.
All right, but not to bash on AEW, dude. I got to be honest with you, right? Yeah. Mercedes Moné, and Camille. Dude, I'm digging them, man. I think it's starting to get over a little bit. It's almost like the Shawn Michaels Diesel combination. What are you thinking?
I think how dare you mention those two in the same breath as Shawn Michaels and Diesel. First off,
wait a minute. Look. Well, you can't see, but there's Mercedes.
I watched it. I got the scripts early enough that I was able to go and check everything out. And here's my opinion. Nope. Who cares? She's the TBS champion. Ooh, wow. By the way, this week's look, those coffee rolls on top of her head. What do you think? Wow. Great look. That's a great look.
All right.
God.
Serious opinion here. Serious opinion.
I'm being serious. I can't stand her in AEW. She sucks.
Not into it at all. Phil says he loves himself some Camille, man.
Well, Camille's a different story. Camille's playing her role fine because Camille is doing a role that's kind of hard to fuck up. Silent but deadly, looks good, is big, is strong, doing her part. Mercedes Moné, when she talks, is nails on the blackboard to me. It's awful. Without WWE's proper presentation and guidance, all the cracks in the game are exposed, especially on the microphone. So that's where I'm at.
I got to ask you this. So
doesn't do anything for me.
Mercedes, attractive woman, fair?
Mercedes Moné, yes,
okay.
fair.
So you remember the husband that she was married to? By the way, Dan Sikovic. I hope I'm saying that right, Dan. He says Pharaoh's right, dude.
Thank you,
A lot of
Dan.
people, a lot of people believe in what you say, dude. People like your opinion. Okay, let's get back to my question.
Well, Mike, to be fair to you, you dig the women wrestlers a lot more than most guys that watch wrestling. So I can understand why. Look, you've always been a fan of Camille, so am I. Fair, fair. I was a fan of Sasha Banks. I was. I was a big fan of Sasha Banks. She was reckless, and I'd call her out when I felt she was reckless. Her presentation and game in WWE were much better than what I'm seeing right now. But I get why you're into them and why you think they can have a high ceiling. You know what? If you put those two together in WWE with a WWE presentation and the proper people behind the screen,
Right.
keeping them within their box that works for them, she'd be great, probably. Oh, well, she is where she is right now. She's the TBS champion, dude.
Yeah,
Really?
I'm not really getting that, man. But
I'm
let
not
me
either.
ask you this. So
Sure.
Sasha was married to that guy. I guess he was a hairdresser for the WWE or whatever she was doing. And look, she's a very attractive young lady. And this guy was kind of like a nerd. And
Okay.
I way back we spoke about this. She's in a locker room with probably the most macho men you can be
Yeah.
around, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're around this guy. Now she's getting a divorce. Like, wasn't that doomed for failure from the get-go? Just like I
Uh,
got to be honest with you, before we would talk about Samantha Irvin, the longer Ricochet stays in AEW, you're going to find out that Samantha Irvin is riding someone else's Space Mountain. You know what I'm saying?
it could be. It could be. Look, most of the time, sadly but truly, the odds are with what you're getting at. Uh, Once in a while, there is a couple that truly loves each other and somehow makes it work and stays faithful. But it seems to be rare, especially in the wrestling business, from what we've seen. You know what I mean? Like Becky and Seth are, they stay together in the same company. They're top tier stars. That will probably work long term. It's worked to this point. They have a child. So maybe they're the exception to the rule. But in general, you're right. I mean, the cat's away, and the cat is nothing like these pedigrees that she's around, and who knows? The math says yes. Unfortunately, just 8 out of 10 times probably sad enough.
Is Sasha Banks' career or her legacy going to be destroyed?
No, I tend to compartmentalize when it comes to this stuff. You can't take away her WWE career. She had a great WWE career. She did a lot of important things. She was in part of a very important movement and a major part of it. Uh, this is something I don't lump in with that. It's its own thing, and it's not been a success. But so what? That's the way it goes sometimes,
I think I asked you this before. So Dan brings up Buddy and Rhea, right? Two separate companies. They got married.
right?
Um, how do you think that relationship's going to last? And then I think I asked you this before. It was like, here's Rhea. She's with, you know, married to Buddy, but we know Buddy was with Alexa Bliss, and I think he was with somebody else.
Okay.
Is it, and we all know Alexa dumped Buddy. Is there any sort of like, is there a jealousy thing going on there? Does this become a problem? If Alexa Bliss comes back to the WWE, is there a problem between her and Rhea?
It could be, but I don't really know because I don't know the dynamics backstage. All I can do is just speculate like everybody else who's not back there. It could be. I don't know. I really have no idea. I mean, Alexa's been in the company a long time. Rhea's comfortably at the top of the food chain right now in the women's division. She really would have no reason to worry about Alexa. Buddy's not even there, right? I mean, Buddy's over in AEW doing whatever he's doing. So
How
I don't
how
see
how
why. I would hope that they could all be professionals and just do their fucking job. I would tend to think that would be the deal.
how come Buddy didn't get over? The guy's built like a brick shit house.
You
His
know
mic
what?
skills are but good
You know what's
wrestler.
what's funny. The best you could do with a buddy is just what Aleister Black did with himself. He's mean looking, right? He
Right,
looks like a badass. Buddy
right.
could have been like one of those types, but I don't think it never would have gone for. Buddy doesn't have the mic skills really, and if he does, we haven't been shown them.
This is a good point. It's a good point.
You know what I mean? So, do I think Buddy and Rhea could work out? For some reason, I do. That's my gut read on that one. Uh, but like I said, they could again be the exception to the rule.
Give me your breakdown on this last Saturday pay-per-view. What were your
I
thoughts of the matches?
I enjoyed it. You know, it's funny, even though it's a foregone conclusion, and I knew that Cody would defeat Kevin, they what a beautiful match. It's everything that's right about wrestling. And it's two guys who have very quietly, in some ways, been doing this for decades almost at this point. I mean, Cody and Kevin started their careers probably about 20 years ago when they started taking bumps for the first time. Here's two awesome veterans that told a great story. Amazingly enough, Kevin is like loved in Germany. I think the crowd wanted Kevin more than they wanted Cody, but there were plenty of Cody people. Excellent match, well done. All the flaws that followed in the next match with the ladies were enhanced even more, especially after that perfect storytelling by Cody and Kevin. That was a fantastic match. Then the women come out.
Whoa, wait a minute.
I know you loved that match, but
I gotta tell
I'm
you,
not
man,
going
I
with that.
love
That
that
was
match.
nope.
Go ahead.
No, that was it was serviceable at best. All right. I mean, I know you dig the ladies and you're into the ladies scene, and I get that. But coming off of Kevin and Cody, all holes exposed, all flaws exposed in their games. Yike. You know, and we did talk about this during the week, and you got to meet me with this main point. Bianca is diminishing in this situation. Okay. And it's even spilling into the ring work. Okay. Or perhaps it was not all her fault. And the girls they were facing are not really there yet either. But what was weird about it all was the one who came out looking the tightest, the most professional of all of them was Jade. I'm so confused
Well,
now.
let me ask you about that because I was giving it a lot of thought after you and I
Yeah.
spoke about it. We're all human, right? And like for example, you look, as much as any of us want to claim we can multitask, it's not natural for a human to multitask, right?
It's
So do
not.
you think? No, it really isn't.
I
We
drum and sing at the same time live. What are you talking about?
but that's not multitasking,
Oh,
dude.
yes, it is. What are you kidding me?
And let's be
What?
fair. Let's be fair. One thing does get affected by the other because you're
Yeah,
doing the other thing.
sure.
So you can do both, but I'm sure if you just sang or played drums by itself, you could give a better performance. But that's neither here nor there. Do you
Could be.
think that Bianca is affected by the fact that she knows the company wants to put a big push on Jade and she knows it's going to be big money down the road and she's got to get Jade successful? Because we all know Jade can't wrestle. I mean, she's still really
Limited.
here I am. I'm going to use the word. Where's Bully Ray? Green. You know,
Uh
oh my
oh.
God, right? He
You
might come
can't
run
wait.
into
You
my room
can't
right now.
use that. You can't use that word. You're not allowed to use that word.
Not
What are
allowed
you
to
doing?
use it. So do you think by her concentrating on getting Jade over is starting to affect her personally?
No, I don't know about her personally. She seems to be a pros pro, unless I missed something. Look, who's she married to? He's been a pros pro during all of this. You know, there were rumors flying around that Montez was going to get a solo push. Did he ever get it? No. Did it affect his performance with, you know, his tag team? No. Uh, but I do think it's diminishing the fans' perception when they watch her because, look, Bianca Belair was top of the card, man. Right?
Yeah.
Top of the card, man. She was like the shit. And this tag team thing has diminished her in the eyes of the guy who looks at it as a sport, you know, checks out the results, sees what's going on. And yeah, it's a lessening for her. And you're right, it's probably the long game. Get Jade over, build her up, and then we'll get back to you, which I think they will. You know what I mean? So she's dealing with it right now, but it's not been easy. Like I said, that match was serviceable at best. And in my opinion, I know you loved it, but I thought it was the worst one on the card.
Listen, I could
know?
understand where you didn't like it. I get it.
Yeah.
But to me, it wasn't about the wrestling. It was the it factor those two have. I mean,
They have it.
they
They
are
have it.
gold together.
They
They
are.
are gold together.
They
Especially,
are.
I was thinking to myself, like, man, they even get it. They're putting on the same outfits, the same
Yeah.
colors. They're
Yeah.
getting the whole tag team
Yeah.
vibe. Like, we're heading towards a road. If they could, I'm telling you what, this could main event a WrestleMania. Could. But I agree with you. There's some points where I was watching Bianca and I'm like, man, she is slow to the move on these
Yeah.
choreographed moves
Yeah.
and taking its time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that I have a quick a quick hook, but I was hoping that the second they held the belts up, Jade was going to clothesline her.
Too
I'm
early.
already, I'm
Yeah,
already,
too early.
I'm already looking for it. See, that would have made the match, and I would have been like, that was great. You
Yeah,
know what
but
I
you,
mean?
dude, you got to get them to Mania. And you know what?
I
When we
know.
were on ESPN, I was just thinking too, like, so if everybody remembers when we were on ESPN discussing, I think it was, I forget what was it, SummerSlam, wherever they lost the belt, Clash at the Castle. They had lost the belt and they were wrestling the pay per view. Like, oh well, they're just going to give it back to them. If we
Flash.
were
Yeah.
thinking and stop thinking with our hearts,
Yeah.
we should have realized that they were going to
Yeah.
lose because they needed to extend their
Right.
program.
Right. Right.
You know, it
Well,
would be too early to win the belts back. You
Mike,
know,
that's what's changed in this business. When we were kids, when you lost to Backlund, you were done. There wasn't a extension of a program. I win, you win, and then there's a rubber match. You know,
right, right.
like they do in 2 out of 3 with the Yankees and Red Sox. It's the rubber match. You know, everything's changed now. You got to think longer than the simple how it used to be, and that's a big problem for guys like you and me because we're used to how it used to be.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. You deal with it when it happens, you know. But you're right. Everything's long term now, especially after Roman. Didn't that teach anybody a lesson? You know, the whole Roman thing. It took 2 WrestleManias for Cody to finish his story. That's what we do now.
How did you like the Four Corners match?
I
Bull,
loved it. I
bull rope.
loved it. I loved it. I thought they did a great job. It was a great story. It's been a great feud. Everything was great except for what I told you during the week. Are we that dopey as a society at this point that you need to put video game type lights on each corner and light them green? Oh, okay. He's touched one. Wait, what comes after one? He's touched two. He's touched two. You know how I know? Because the green lights are on. I can see them. Oh, wait, the momentum's been stopped. Michael Cole's got to sit there as good as, and Michael Cole's great, okay? But he's got to sit there and fucking explain it like we don't know what we're looking at. And you know what scares me? You and I do know what we're looking at, but I bet you a lot of people don't.
But here's the other thing too,
Oh,
dude. We keep
boy.
on forgetting. With all due respect to myself, you,
Yeah,
maybe Phil,
yeah,
uh, maybe Maria. Again, our audience gets younger as you go too, but
yeah,
basically
sure.
older people like ourselves, they don't care. They're teaching a new generation, and a new generation never
Yeah,
saw a bull rope match, never saw a four corners trap match,
strap match, yeah,
right? They just
yeah.
never saw this stuff.
I guess you're
So they
right.
have to
All
they
right.
have to feed them. They have to feed them. It makes all the sense in the world. It sucks for us, you know what I'm saying? But it is
Oh,
what it is,
boy.
right?
Yeah, it that's for sure. I loved it though. I thought it was great. You know, Punk. But it's amazing. Punk is just over. It doesn't matter. You can drop him on any corner of the globe for an event, and everyone's going to scream CM Punk. Just a great job. By the way, you know we talked about this in the past, but and I hope you'll meet me halfway with this. When McIntyre and Punk are going at it, don't forget bigger than life characters give you that belief that might not have. Punk looked like he could handle a fight with Drew McIntyre, man. He plays so big. He was in great shape, by the way. Punk's in
Punk,
great shape.
Punk is reborn, man.
Yeah,
I
man.
mean,
Yep.
reborn.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Yes, sir.
he I don't know, something clicked.
Love it.
Maybe got older, it all clicked, and it's all
Yeah,
happening. Match
yeah.
of the card, match of the pay-per-view.
Match of the pay per view. Wow. It's a toss up for me between Cody and Kevin and Gunther and Randy because I absolutely adored Gunther and Randy
Did you
too.
like the sleeper hold finish with Randy?
Fucking loved it. Oh my god, I love that. That was absolutely amazing, especially after he snagged him in it like 2 or 3 times. You thought he was out of it. He was out of the hold, and Gunther just refused. Refused. Love the handshake at the end. Very professional and just a testament to this great sport, as Gunther says.
Wow, look at you. And
Love
you
it.
were 2 years
Love it.
ago in studio, you were
No,
fuming that they
hated the
changed
name.
from
Hated the
Walter to
name, but
Gunther.
didn't hated the name change, but didn't realize what Vince was foreseeing as far as his character. The name suits this character. That's not Walter.
Now
That's
this is
Gunther.
this is why you're brilliant. This is why I love you, Jimmy, because
Oh, thank you.
you parlayed us right to where we have to be going. So
Yep.
this show is about Vince McMahon, villain or hero. Vince McMahon has a documentary coming out the 25th of this month, I believe. It's a
You must be
five-part series.
you must be drooling.
Well,
Go ahead.
again, if you talk to my know-it-all wife, she would say,
Oh
"What are you
no.
going to watch
Here
it
we
for?
go.
You know everything about the guy. What do you need to watch it for?"
Okay.
right? But
To,
that's just the way it
to,
works in
to
Monty
talk
house.
to talk about it on the show because thousands of
No, no,
people are
no.
going to
I
want to
know
know
everything
what you
about him,
think.
Jimmy. I can't learn anything new because I'm a fucking idiot. You know what I mean?
Are you done absorbing? Is your sponge brain is all sponged out? What's going on here?
This guy, Sir Drums, put Vince Hero, Jack McMahon, Jesse Ventura. I like that. All right, dude. So let's look into a little bit about Vince McMahon. Before we start, Jimmy, right? We're going to get into it. Our minds may change, but before you even go,
Yeah,
Vince McMahon, hero or villain?
both. He's both. He has both. There's plenty that you can look up to in Vince McMahon, and there's plenty you can get pissed off about. He's both.
All right, well let's look at it, dude.
Yeah.
So Vince McMahon was born on August 24th, 1945, North Carolina. He's the son of Vincent J. McMahon, who was a wrestling promoter and ran the Capital Wrestling Corporation.
Hmm.
Vince did not meet his father until he was 12 years old, as he's
Hmm.
raised by his mother and experienced a challenging childhood. In his early life, instilled a strong desire to improve himself. So to prove himself. So
Yeah.
let's start there, my friend.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a guy grew up poor. We all know that Vince McMahon was poor. I think he lived in a place that didn't even have a shitter in it at the point.
With his mom in the years that he's with
With
his
his
mom.
mom.
Okay.
So we all know, and we'll get into it a little further, but here's a guy that was abandoned by his father,
Right.
right? From what I understood, did not have a very good relationship with his mother,
Right.
and spent his whole early life trying to prove himself. We all know where Vince has ended up late in his career, but do you think this is what started to mold Vince McMahon, the villain and hero, like you said, the early lives living with only his mother?
It's very, very important to have, if you're fortunate enough, and unfortunately, not everybody is. It's very, very important to have two good parents, to have them around. And if you're a young boy growing up in the years that Vince McMahon did, it's imperative almost to have a good father to be able to talk to, especially in the formative years. It's a little personal, but I can tell you this much: Zach McDaniel only had Wahoo till he was 14, but thank God he had him for the years that he did have him because his father left a huge impression on him, and Zach's a good man, and it was important that he had his father in those formative years. There is nothing more fragile than a young child. So I wish I knew more, but maybe I don't wish I knew more. If you folks out there understand what I'm saying about Vince McMahon years 1 through
Well, wait a
12.
minute. Listen. So, look,
Who
Mitch
knows?
Seinfeld in the house. How are you, Paul
What's
Shaw?
up,
Thanks
Mitch?
for joining us.
What's up, guys?
Matthew Holland. It's been a while.
Matthew, what's up, brother?
Here's my question to you. And again, look, it's
Yeah,
only speculation.
right.
Um, but do you think Vince deep inside has a hatred for women because of growing up without his father and possibly living in a situation where maybe his mother may have taken advantage of him? I mean,
It,
I'm trying to be honest here.
I have no idea what happened there, but it's possible. It is possible. A hatred for women. I don't know. Vince has been very strange over the years. Of course, there's all the. We'll get to that stuff later, I'm sure. There's all the drama and the trials and all the stuff that he's supposedly done. But then there's other things that he's done to make women a very important part of his product, especially towards the end of his career. So I don't know. I really don't know. Is it possible though, Mike? Yeah, it's definitely possible.
So Vince McMahon in the 70s joined his father's company working as a promoter and then as an announcer.
Right.
Uh, his natural charisma and ambition soon helped him rise through the ranks. By 1982, he had purchased a company from his father. But
Mm-hmm.
let's talk about that with his
Yeah.
father, okay?
Yeah.
Um, we did have Billy Jack on before Billy decided to go to jail or do what he did, right? We don't know
Mm-hmm.
exactly what happened. We can only assume.
Right.
But Billy did say on the show a few times that his father, again, in this world of wrestling, you never know what's true, but I always feel like there's a little truth behind even the craziest bullshit. And
Okay.
remember the time Billy Jack had informed us that his father was Vince McMahon,
He
right?
he thinks that he thought that Vince McMahon was possibly his father. Yeah, I
But
remember that.
but to be honest with you,
I don't
think about
believe
it.
it, but I don't believe it at all. But go
But
ahead.
but but in that case, but there's no doubt that probably Vince McMahon Sr.
Yeah.
Had a taste for the women also.
It's funny.
Clearly, he left his wife,
We never
right?
hear
He was
anything about Vince Senior. We never hear a thing.
different time, bro. But you know
That's
what?
right.
Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Now, here's a
Right.
guy that wasn't molded by his father. He ends up meeting his father at 12 years old. Now he's probably in awe, right? Here's this rich businessman with his
Oh yeah.
cigarettes in his suit.
Oh
And
yeah.
then he sees, sometimes driving, he's probably got a piece of ass everywhere he's turning. And all of a sudden Vince is like, man,
Probably.
I'd
Yeah.
like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question to you is this. Was it a good, well, I don't know how to say this to you, Jimmy. Was it a good idea that Vince McMahon Sr. decided to come into his son's life so late? And do you think that he was a very poor influence on his father? On his son, I'm sorry.
Okay. Look. Listen. In the math of things, those 12 years that I spoke about previously when you're a child are very, very important. But he did not come into his life he came into his life at a later time, but not a later time in the scheme of things. All right. Vince McMahon's entire teenage years and adult years until his father passed away were spent with his father. Vince McMahon, the man, most of that comes from his time exposed to his father when he did finally get to see his father. Do I think that his father was a bad influence on him? I don't think so. Vince Senior did not seem to do things that any more unscrupulous than any other promoter was doing back in those days. I'm sure the whole shock of, wow, here's my dad. Oh my God, this is what my dad does for a living. Holy shit, this is insane. I mean, for a 12-year-old kid who had never seen his dad before to process that, why don't we all stop for a second and think about that? That must have been mind blowing for a 12-year-old. Mike, when we were 12, we were reading the magazines and wrestling in your backyard. This guy is with his father at Madison Square Garden watching those things you described. Wow, dad with the suit and the cigarettes and these ladies. And oh my, is that Bruno Sammartino? He must have been so blown away and realizing that this could all be his. How can his
Jimmy,
ego ever
Jimmy,
turn out normal? Oh my God, no way.
I love your comments, but I want to ask you, so
Yeah,
Chris Ruth says Vince McMahon Sr. was definitely a better person than Vince McMahon Jr.,
seems to
but it
be.
was a different time. Yes. Wait a minute.
Seems to be.
Okay.
He
Wait a minute.
seems
I'm
to
going to ask you
be.
this question. Let's
Yeah,
go to baseball.
yeah,
If Mickey Mantle had grown up in today's age,
yeah.
how would Mickey be revered right now? Or would he be
Uh,
revered?
okay. Mickey would be. Well, first of all, I don't think you could behave the way they behaved back
But
then.
that's what I'm trying to say to you.
All right, but understand this though: if they could, Mickey Mantle, it's the greatest story I've ever heard about Mickey. Mickey was out drinking with his boys. You know who his boys were? Whitey Ford and Billy Martin. Okay? He was out all night, all fucking night. And he came to the dugout the next day for the game, shit faced, completely shit faced. Casey was like, fuck you, you're fucking sitting. All right? So he sat him. And in the eighth inning, the game is tied or whatever it was, and they needed a home run. Mickey, you're up. Mickey is still spinning. He's not better yet. He's still totally groggy, and he hits a fucking 500-foot home run. If Mickey Mantle was hitting 500 and what did he hit for his career? 536 or something
But
like
dude, do
that.
you see what you're doing?
He's a
That
hero.
you're giving a guy a self-worth because of the way that he played on the field.
It's put up or
Vince
shut up, and
McMahon
Mickey always
Jr.
put up.
But Vince McMahon Jr. is not getting that same kind of treatment. What he's done for wrestling is undoubtful. Like
Yeah.
it's unbelievable.
He's more than
I mean,
Mickey Mantle.
how many
He's more than
girlfriends?
Mickey Mantle to this sport. He's Babe Ruth as
But
far as
my
promoters.
point is,
He is what he is.
if you use Mickey Mantle, he was a womanizer, he was a drinker, he didn't take care of his kids. It
Right.
was like, come on, man. I mean, this is what I'm trying to say. So when Chris says that
Right.
Senior was better than or nicer, who the fuck knows?
That's
Listen,
true. That's possible too.
you are usually a some sort of fabric of your parents in one
Right.
way or another.
Well, listen. Mickey had a decent upbringing, and to Mantle's credit, I have to say this for Mantle. At the end of his life, it was one of the greatest interviews. I think he gave it for Sports Illustrated because he knew he was dying. And he said, I never would have lived this way if I thought I was not going to. I didn't think I was even going to make it this far. Mickey died at like 63 or something like that. And he warned everybody, don't do what I did. So he did come around and at least say, listen, I lived my life the way I lived it, but I wouldn't try this at home, folks. You know,
Here's the thing.
there
Here's
was,
the thing.
you
You've
know,
always heard.
accountability.
You've heard this statement before, Jimmy.
Yeah.
There's no atheists in foxholes. When people know the time is up, of course they want forgiveness, right? Because they know they're going to go meet their maker, or maybe that's what you believe, right?
Not everybody. Not everybody. I mean, Charlie Manson was defiant till the end.
I no, absolutely.
Not everybody.
My point is not to rip apart Mickey Mantle. My point
Right.
is
Right.
Vince McMahon's behavior later on in his life, and then add
Right.
on the fact that, and we'll get into it, that he became a billionaire. Because that's a question I'm going to ask you, and I know you'll
Yeah.
answer me honestly. But let's move on, because we're going to get into some of the trials and tribulations Vince has gone into.
Sure.
He buys it from his father. He gets put in a situation that if he misses one payment, he loses his investment, and Senior gets back Capital Entertainment to WWE,
Wow.
which is a gutsy move by Vince Jr. Let's also understand that Vince Jr. as a promoter had some failed promotions. He promoted Evil Knievel, Snake River.
Right.
I think he promoted Muhammad Ali, Antonio Inoki.
Mike, I want to enhance right now your whole point of what we just previously discussed, that it is very possible that Vince McMahon Sr. was just like Junior and Junior vice versa. What kind of balls to the wall stipulation is of that for a father to give his son? You miss one payment and I get it all back. That sounds like a McMahon to me.
It sounds like a McMahon to me also.
That's what I'm getting at, bro. Go ahead.
The birth of WrestleMania and national expansion, Vince McMahon's most significant contribution to the wrestling business was the vision of nationally televising wrestling promotions. Now, here's another thing. Vince McMahon taking any kind of money he may have made, buying all this talent, from Hulk Hogan to Greg Valentine, and he comes up with the idea of WrestleMania 1, which we all understand may have come from the money he earned from Black Saturday.
Right.
But still, he's risking all that money.
Yep. Well,
if you put $1 million in my hand, I'm like, you know what? I'll just keep the $1 million.
I'll tell you what, though, and I don't know if you're aware of this, but I found this fascinating. Vince was going to call the first WrestleMania something else, and Howard Finkel went to him and said, don't call it. I think it was like the Colossal Collision or some shit like that. Right. And he was like, don't do that. WrestleMania, and that's a tip of the cap to Beatlemania. It made all the sense in the world to put Mania behind that. Beatlemania, WrestleMania, Hulkamania, it works. Could you imagine if he had named it the other way around? I don't know.
But Jimmy, it goes to this, man. It goes to, you got to be lucky, and you have to have good people behind you.
Sure.
I mean, kudos to Vince for having all these guys, from let's like name the list of people that were working for him at the time.
Well,
Jay Strongbow,
right away,
Monsoon.
Obviously, the Strongbows and the Monsoons of the world, but then there's Patterson. Come on, Patterson was a genius for him. Vince's ability to also listen to wrestlers sometimes that had great ideas, like how he worked over the years with Jericho and guys like that. Like, he took ideas. If they were good, he'd use them, He was a great delegator, and he had loyal people around him, and he was smart to do that. You got to delegate. Joe Torre had Don Zimmer. Joe Torre had Don Zimmer. You got to have somebody at your side that knows as much as you do, or at least can give you the right advice at the right time.
He had the wherewithal to pick up Jim Barnett also, right? I mean, that was a smart move by him, right?
Yeah.
He brought a guy that had all the connections, right?
Right.
Barnett needed a job.
For a guy that has a massive ego, as we all know, it's not that massive that he didn't take a look at that little company, ECW, and take a lot of notes too. Vince was always aware of everything around him, and I think that that's the difference between him and other promoters. He was not just aware of his own bubble. He was aware of everything else around him. And yeah, sometimes he'd get sucked into his own bubble, but he had the wherewithal to pull himself out of it when the ratings told him, you better wake the fuck up and change the product. He's very smart. He was always the smartest shark in the tank. That's all there is to it. He was the smartest. He was the fiercest, and he had the biggest balls. And I've said it 1,000 times that all the territory guys would backstab each other anyway. They were all backstabbing each other
It's true.
anyway back in the day. They always wanted to get one over on the other promotion, one way or the other. You want to win. You're not doing this to just do it. You're
But
want
let
to
me
win.
let me bring you back. Let me bring you back to WrestleMania 1 though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
He chose Mr. T,
Mm-hmm.
Cyndi
Brilliant.
Lauper.
Brilliant.
Would you have went? Look, you know how it ended up, so it's kind of a stupid question. But like, would you have went a different way? Would you have not had Mr. T in it? Would you had a Piper Hogan main event coming off of War to settle the score?
No, it was brilliant because, listen, it's all coming off the residue. Let's really go back to the time. It's all coming off the residue of Rocky fucking 3. All right? That's where Hogan makes his name. Okay? Goes into the AWA. Why is he so beloved? Basically, he's coming off the residue of Rocky 3 by the time he gets to Vince. Of course you want Mr. T involved. Hell, if Sly wasn't busy, they might have found a way to get Stallone in there. And it still would have worked, one way or the other. The timing, Lauper with MTV. MTV's like in what, its third year of existence, fourth year? It's explosion. It's exploded. It's the center of the universe to kids like you and me back in the day. So tapping into MTV, tapping into a big-time Stallone picture with the Hulk in it. Mr. T was a superstar when we were kids. That guy was a household name, I mean, come on. Anybody who comes up with a line, how would you like your drink? In a cup, fool.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
It is brilliant, man.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant, and it was over like Rover, and sure, Piper Hogan would have been great, but that was greater for the spectacle. It was about the E that we got years later due to the lawsuit that took away WWF and it became WWE. Vince wanted it to be not just wrestling, he wanted it to be a show, a grand show. And that's what we got at the first WrestleMania. And he was right to do that because what are we up to now? We're getting towards the 50th anniversary. So, well, we're not there yet. But you know what I'm saying, okay? It's the Super Bowl of wrestling. It's going to be around for many more years to come. He really, really saw things that other people couldn't see. And that's the difference between Vince McMahon and everybody else.
Well, let's talk about Vince's real first challenge in the wrestling industry. We'll get through all this stuff.
Sure.
Wait a minute, hold on. Maria says, right, Jimmy Pharaoh. How would you like your drink? Response in a cup, fool.
Yeah, in a cup, fool.
So WCW makes the biggest challenge, and we spoke about Vince McMahon. He could have stuck to his guns, but instead he started listening, and the Monday Night Wars started. So let's open up with the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah.
What was the biggest difference in your mind of the Monday Night Wars?
The biggest difference is what we see today in a milder example with AEW. The biggest difference is that WCW was, when they were on top, they were doing it with Vince's guys, period. Goldberg was probably the one pure WCW product that they came up with that was over on any level of the highest of levels. Everything was WWE retreads, which is what I've seen for the most part in AEW. They are different, but I would say MJF is AEW's Goldberg. He's not Goldberg, obviously, folks. Calm down. But he's obviously their homegrown. He's obviously their homegrown product, and he's a big star. And I think he would do well wherever he went. He's at the top of the food chain at what he does. So that's the real reason is that they struck lightning in a bottle, and they did it with Hogan, Hall, and Nash. And then everything was WWF legends coming in, retreads, what have you. That does not work long term. And Vince was a genius because when he was losing the war, he looked within. He did not look without, and he looked within. And he saw people like Mick Foley and turned them into Mankind. And he saw young Rocky Maivia, turned him into The Rock. We've been through this list before. Stone Cold became Stone Cold. DX was formed. Shawn Michaels had a brilliant second career when he came back. Vince knew how to pull youngsters like Brock Lesnar and Randy Orton. What a class that was. Brock Lesnar, Randy Orton, Batista, and John Cena. Are you kidding me? How do you even compete when you got a class like that coming up? And that's credit to Vince. As I watched my Florida State Seminoles not be prepared because the senior class left and now they suck. And that hurts me to say.
Well,
But you got to be prepared.
but fair to say at this
Yeah.
point, right? Vince, whether being lucky, good, maybe a mix of both. You got to
All
be
the
both,
above.
right?
All the
Right?
above.
He's successful. But now let's start going into the problems that Vince had throughout his career.
Okay.
And let's talk about that.
All right.
We know it's riddled with controversy. In the early 90s, he was put on trial for allegedly distributing anabolic steroids to wrestlers. Although acquitted, the trial put a spotlight on the WWE's backstage practices. So let's talk about that. So Vince gets brought into the steroid trials. We spoke about that.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my point to you on that, Jimmy, is okay. Was that a give me a better word to say it? Was it a witch hunt, really, in your opinion, on the steroid trials?
Well, number one, let's get to the truth of it all. He was acquitted. What does acquitted mean, Michael?
He's innocent.
Okay, so he was acquitted. What I found interesting about that whole time period is that the guys that were speaking against him were the very guys that him and his father going back made wealthy, and they were no longer getting checks from him, and they were angry. And yes, I'm talking about the late great Bruno Sammartino and the late great superstar Billy Graham. There was an agenda there, okay? And anybody who doesn't see that, you're just not being fair to the human condition. Those guys were pissed, and they were going to get their 2 pounds of flesh from a guy who had made their careers. All right, which that kind of bothers me. I'm like, oh, stop it,
Jimmy. To be honest with you, I do stand by the fact that when it came to a Rizzy, superstar Billy Graham, Meltzer, they all had an agenda, Jimmy. That's what it was like. They wanted to be the ones to take down Vince McMahon.
Vince McMahon is a lot like President Trump. He's very divisive. You either love him or hate him, and there's very few in-betweens. That's just the way it is.
All right, so then let's talk about the Ring Boy scandal.
Okay.
We've discussed it many times. Now, again, the reason I love this show and I love doing this with Jimmy is Jimmy and I brought up subjects that were either dead or needed new life. And I thought this show over the last years have brought attentions from, the cop who killed kayfabe, the Ring Boy scandals, Benoit, on and on and on and on.
Right. Right.
We both have we've talked about the Ring Boy scandal stuff to nauseum.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you, does Vince McMahon have any, in your mind, is he responsible? Okay. Is he responsible for what happened with the Ring Boys?
Well, to this day, I'm not really sure exactly what did happen with the Ring Boys.
This is true.
Okay, why don't we start with that? There's been a lot of vague, suggestive stories, okay? The exact detail, and then Vince did this, or then this person did this. I'm still waiting to hear the this portion,
This is not a setup, but I have a special guest that wanted to join the show.
Nope, I'm not doing it. Oh, I will.
There he is.
Hi,
there
Lee.
There he is.
How are you?
Lee.
Wait, can I wave Lee?
Right on the
Hi,
Ring
Lee.
Boy, right on the Ring Boy scandal thing.
Yeah.
Mike,
by the way, Mike, you knew this was going to happen. You're a rat bastard, but go ahead.
I swear to God I didn't. Lee, your mic is off. You got to turn your mic on.
Lee knows how to use the camera.
I know. It's not me that has him off. I don't have him off. His mic isn't on.
Wow, Lee. What's going on there, brother?
I think he's getting set up. Hold on. He's speaking, but he can't hear.
Can you hear me now?
Now we can.
There he is.
So,
how you doing, guys?
Defend me right here. How are you, Lee? Thanks for joining us. I did not set this up, right, Lee?
Lee, come on, Lee.
No,
come on, Lee.
No, let me tell you what happened. I was listening to your show. It was very interesting because I dropped a show on what you guys are talking about tonight.
Okay.
And I just found it very interesting. You made some really good points. Yeah, I'm not looking to come on here and argue with you or nothing because you made some really valid points. And what I believe, though, and you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but just a prediction I'm going to make. I believe that right after this Netflix documentary comes out, they're going to indict Vince McMahon, and the reason I believe that is because that's what they usually do when these type of documentaries come out. They want the public. They don't want the wrestling world to get turned on Vince. They want the public to turn on Vince, and a lot of the public are going to watch the documentary, and that's going to be the perfect time. And then I believe it's going to be an October surprise. That's another reason they'll put the indictment on him. But the biggest reason is because Linda McMahon is part of his transition team. I believe this is just my prediction. Tell me I'm crazy. I believe this is going to be the October surprise. That's what I,
So,
this is,
as we all are aware, with this documentary coming out, it is produced by Vince McMahon. So I would
Oh.
have to assume it's going to be somewhat skewed
yeah,
positive
well,
Vince
they took him
McMahon,
off the
right?
production.
They did.
They took him off the production.
Oh, okay.
Yes. And they
Okay.
also, and here's another thing. They also reached out to Janelle Grant, who rejected them. Uh, for an inter for so why would first of all, why would they reach out to Janelle Grant? Because they know that's not going to be pretty if she comes on. It's obvious that Janelle Grant's going to do something else. But there's so many things going on behind the scenes here. It's kind of fun, actually.
Yeah.
You know, I'm looking forward to the documentary. I think it's gonna be either one of two things. It's gonna be disappointing or it's gonna be shocking.
So
So,
Lee, I
go ahead.
gotta ask Lee though. Is this a witch hunt on Vince McMahon just because of all the shady alleged things he's done over the years? Is he like a lot like President Trump, where either you love him or hate him, and the ones who hate him are going to do whatever they can to take him down, or what?
No, I think that Vince McMahon has actually done many more things that are can be proven than Donald Trump.
Well, when are we going to get proven over the years? This is decades now that Vince is somehow. Has
I
it always just been money that gets him out of everything?
listen. He's a very powerful man. When you're a billionaire, it's like having a big wall in front of you. I mean, he can fight. I'll give you an example. Laurinaitis originally went to the feds because he wanted to flip on Vince. And he decided not to flip on Vince because the feds don't want him because they think Laurinaitis is guilty as Vince McMahon.
Right. He's not reliable source because he has no character either, allegedly. I got you. All right.
And here, my prediction is the one that's going to turn on him and it's going to turn out to be a big thing is going to be Brock Lesnar. That's just my prediction.
Oh.
Yeah, let me tell you why.
Oh.
Brock Lesnar was caught in a bunch of texts with Janelle Grant, and he didn't do anything criminal, but all the feds have to do is threaten you, and Brock Lesnar has to make a decision. Do I turn on Vince McMahon and because once Brock Lesnar says yes, they were trying to lure me in to get Janelle Grant to get a contract going. Once he does that, that puts it in the bed with trafficking. And it's obvious they're going to charge him with trafficking because the lawyer, the district attorney, now, I'm sorry, the prosecutor that's in charge of it, that's her specialty, trafficking, nothing else. That's what she
Lee,
does.
Lee,
Trafficking.
let me ask you a question. There's multiple things that Vince McMahon has been accused of. Like Jimmy said, he's been acquitted through most of it, or all of it. But the question to you is this: two things. One, considering the time, do you think what Vince McMahon has possibly turned into, we say possibly, is due to his childhood and maybe not getting the right help that he needed early on in his life? You know, the things that made him successful, like we said, hero or villain. And then my last question, you, Lee, and this is probably the most important part. If he does get indicted and he does go to jail or he dies, will that be bittersweet for you?
I'll be honest with you. I'm not hoping that he dies, and I don't like to see any man go to prison. I would like to see justice. But my opinion is if they indict him, here's the key. If they indict him, do they let him out on bail? Because there are people that they don't let out on bail. And so what's wrong with this whole thing with McMahon? McMahon might get caught up in the whole let's get Trump thing. And if that's the case, think about all the guys they jailed trying to get Trump and how they rejected bail from them guys. This might have a bigger plan on it. You know, I really believe this is going to be the October surprise. That's just
Lee, I gotta ask you, what would to Lee Cole, what would justice be for Vince McMahon?
I think 90% of the justice to him has already been served.
Okay.
Because
Meaning, could you?
he's lost everything that he loves.
I got it.
Like, this is a guy that wants to walk behind the scenes. He wants to be in charge. This is a man
Yep.
that ran his empire with an iron fist.
Yep.
Uh, I'd like to see a trial. I like to see who's going to do what. I like to see exactly where Triple H stands on this, because I think that's going to get very, very sketchy. Because why is TKO sticking with Triple H? And you got to and now you guys know who runs TKO, right? The Manuel brothers. Who did the Manuel's brothers put in the White House? They put
Gotcha.
Obama in the White House.
Right.
These are very powerful men. These are big time Democrats. And not only are they Democrats, they're like the top of the. This is what makes this whole thing. Why did a Democratic organization like TKO? Okay, we know that they got involved with UFC, but what they knew that when they were going into with Vince McMahon's Donald Trump's friend. They knew that. The Manuels hate Donald Trump. Why would they even consider it? And 1 week after they do the deal, they take him down. I believe the Manuel brothers took him down. I really do. I believe they.
Well,
set
they
him
might
up.
be keeping Triple H because business is business. They've made an investment, and Triple H clearly knows how to run the business. So perhaps it's a money thing. Why they kept Triple H?
I think Triple H has given them a lot of information on Vince. I think he was set up.
Interesting.
I think he was set.
Here's the thing, Lee. When
Wow.
you said that he lost a lot, if what you're saying is correct, and Triple H turned on Vince, and Stephanie, his own daughter, turned on Vince, Jimmy, I don't know about you, but if my daughter turned on me,
I know.
I could never imagine anything worse. My life would be over. I would feel destroyed.
Yeah.
It would be worse than going to jail. It would be worse than all that stuff. The daughter and the son that you love so much, turned on you.
I do agree with what Lee said, though, because his livelihood has been taken away from him, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Joe Paterno did not last long after Penn State, and I find this very similar, Mike, eerily similar in a lot of ways. Vince McMahon, to me, has spiritually already been slayed. He must be miserable. I mean, I can't say for sure, but.
And here's the thing with Vince McMahon, though. He was his own worst enemy. If he never came back, when he walked through that door and screwed Stephanie over, that was his downfall. He should have never done that. Because in reality, Vince McMahon screwed over his daughter. So how did he expect his daughter to react? The husband of his daughter, the husband of the woman of Triple H's children.
Right.
He came in there. She was in charge. She was the head person on the board, and they came in. He came in and said, "You know what, Stephanie? I decided I'm coming back." They finished paying those women off. See, this is where we see powerful people get stupid and greedy. If he never came back, we're not here right now.
So the children over the years also developed some egos of their own, though, too, I would have to say. If Stephanie is going to be holding a vengeance campaign if that's what happens, against her own father. So it seems to me like there's more than one ego going off course here, but I understand what you're getting at. I get it.
But he betrayed his daughter because he promised his daughter he was going to go away. He was retiring. Right. He's the one that decided.
Would
you believe him, though? I wouldn't believe him if he told me that. Vince McMahon is not made to retire.
Listen, I have to agree. I have to agree with Jay Will. If there's any animosity with the daughter, it's probably the treatment that Linda took from Vince.
Right.
Regardless if they were separated, they didn't belong together.
I agree with that.
There is some sort of humiliation goes around when you're
Linda's
been all these women.
Linda's been embarrassed to the core. And yes, that would piss me off if I was Stephanie. So I could see that.
You know something? I always believed that Linda McMahon was having an affair with Jerry McDivitt. I always believed that.
Wow, look at you.
Yeah. Well, I remember my brother Tom used to tell me. He used to say, "Lee, when those two are together, they don't act like they're working in there."
Wow, I've heard of penal code, but this is a little absurd. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, you know something? As crazy as it sounds, they had a very. she knew that what Vince was doing. It was a very open relationship, and she probably had her little thing on the side. She was a very beautiful woman when she was young, very
Wow.
desirable. Um,
Interesting.
eh, she's not you this brilliant woman. Everybody in the world knows that Vince is screwing around with his wife. Come on,
Right. Well, obviously.
No,
you know.
there's no doubt there was an agreement there at some point. She was, listen, again, the guy's got, an ego the size of China, right? So in that in itself, I mean, we were talking about I was talking to my wife about it, like Affleck broke up with J Lo, and we all know what happened recently with Nikki Bella with her husband.
Right.
I mean, respectfully to women, some of the it must be very hard to live with someone with egos like a Nikki Bella or a
Oh
J
my
Lo.
gosh, yes.
They
Oh, I
they
would never,
it
never.
would be like
No thanks.
torture. It would be torture.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
Nikki Bella wants, like, could you imagine trying to, like, be the
No.
man in that relationship?
No.
There's no
No.
vagina. There's no vagina worth that. I'm sorry.
No.
I don't care if it's a snapper. It ain't worth it.
It's not
Uh,
worth it from either side of the coin. If you got a man who's like that, fuck that. If you got a woman who's like that, fuck that.
No,
yeah,
exactly. That's what I'm
Yep.
saying. To have those type of ego. All right, anyway,
but
Yep.
we're almost out of time, Lee. I want to thank you for joining us, but I'm
no
gonna
problem.
ask the question to both of you. I'll start with Jimmy first, and you, Lee. So
Yeah.
after this discussion, which was excellent, Lee, again, thank you for joining us. You always bring
Right.
some great insight. Jimmy,
Yeah.
Vince McMahon, hero or villain?
Nothing's changed with me. He's both. There's parts of me that will always look up to what he did for the business, and there's parts of me that have been. I'm consistent over the years. There's parts of me. There's been times I want to choke him. He annoys the shit out of me sometimes, but more so than not, I will still look up to Vince McMahon until I see what we all want to have an answer. I want to say if he gets indicted of something, and no, it's obvious that I'm not rooting for that, but if he gets indicted for something, okay, there it is. It's about fucking time. Because
And
all we've done is speak for decades about the things he did or didn't do. I know for a fact that he's not for everyone. I'm pretty confident that if I worked at the WWE, I'm sure I would have had an argument or two with him that would have been fucking nasty. I'm sure of it. All right. He's a very strong personality. He's not for everyone. Hero and villain. And he's got plenty of both. He's got plenty of both on both sides. That's my answer. That's who Vince is to me.
well, to me,
Something like George
yeah,
Steinbrenner. Got bad side and a good side. I never knew either of them.
I would label him an evil genius.
Okay.
That's there's no doubt he's a genius, but I believe his genius stopped. I believe that he stopped being a genius once the company went public, because once you get that rich, it's time to go have fun. But when he wanted to survive, and he was barely, people don't realize in the 80s and early 90s, he wasn't making the money that people think he was, because he was trying to catch up.
Right.
But
Right.
once he went public, I really believe that was his downfall, because
Interesting.
he went from a multimillionaire to a multi-billionaire. That's a big jump.
Yeah.
Look at McGregor, a guy that's always been a good guy, and now he does these weird things in bathrooms with women and pretends he's coming back but never comes back. Why?
Yeah.
Because McGregor's not hungry. Once they lose their hunger, everybody changes. If you
That's
give
true.
me $1 billion, I'm going whore hopping.
Hey, you know what? At least you're honest. But I will.
Oh, I am honest. I don't mean nothing negative about it. I mean, you can get Vince McMahon had the most beautiful women in the world around him.
Sure.
And I'm sure that some of them wanted him.
I'm sure.
I'm
sure of it.
But the problem is the Ashley Massaros of the world that he stalked. That's the problem. So, but she's not here to tell her story.
Here's something that's clear. Vince McMahon's legacy will be tarnished, at least for the near future, regardless how it ends results. And then the last thing is, there's sometimes you have to know when to call it a day, and I agree with Lee. He should have realized, hey, I did all this stuff. I'm rich. I screwed every woman. I fucked people over. I did this, whatever else. I've escaped. Sooner or later, my number was coming up, but he kept playing that number. And, again, Everybody knows you, Lee,
Yeah.
Jimmy. This guy was my hero. Still is my hero for so many different reasons.
It,
But
it's like you're playing roulette and he keeps winning all night, and then he doesn't know when to stop.
exactly, exactly.
That's a very good point.
So again, for me, Vince will always be my hero, but no matter what I believe, Vince has never, in the last 2 years, has never looked like, was never the same to me. I looked him with such admiration. I lost that admiration. I lost that disappointment because Vince McMahon, I always felt was, when I spoke to like Lee, when he spoke to him, or Johnny Photo, who worked with him, and the other people that we know, Jimmy,
Yeah.
when you got in front, I mean, just use, who's I'm sorry, the announcer that does football now. Help me.
McAfee?
McAfee. When he was
Yeah.
on McAfee's show, it
Mhm.
was like this awe, like McAfee was kissing his ass,
Sure.
because that's what Vince garnered. Like,
Yeah.
he was better than, to me, he was like I would shit my bricks. Like Lee had told me
Well,
when he met, he was in awe. But
that's
now it's
right.
like
I remember Lee talking about that.
I feel like I lost all that, considering
Right.
everything that has
Well,
gone on lately.
we've watched him actually shrivel right in front of us. We have for the last couple of years. You know what? You know the old saying, "What comes around goes around." There's a reason why sayings like that have been said for a long time now. What comes around goes around, and Vince to me is Joe Paterno. It's very sad to me. It's also amazing how a few twists of fate, circumstances can turn decades worth of a body of work, like it did for Joe Paterno. He was God in Penn State for half a century, and boy, did that happen quick. And the next thing you knew, he was gone. And I look at Vince now, and I see someone who's been beaten down. It's getting to him internally.
And the scary
You know?
thing, guys, is when you talk about Joe Paterno, I never
Yeah.
think about great football coach anymore. All I think about is sexual harassment
See,
and
that's
not blowing the whistle.
see that's
Yep.
that's where I still have that hero villain thing. I don't look at Joe Paterno strictly for that. Yes, I do think about it. Come on, I'm human. You know, I go, oh, what a horrible ending. But it doesn't take away his great career. It just
Yeah, but do
kind
you
of
know what? Where
kind
his
of fucks it
career
up.
was in the forefront,
Right,
right? But when
right,
you mention Paterno, the first thing that comes to mind
right,
is that. And
right.
that's what's happening to Vince McMahon. Anyway, that all being said,
Yep,
want
yep.
everybody join us at 9 o'clock, where the Mass Superstar will be on. We're very excited for that. Lee Cole, always a gentleman, great conversation.
Yeah, and Pharaoh, I know you kind of stuck up and stuff. You think you're better than everybody. Why don't you come over
What?
to my show and hang out?
I'm stuck up.
I'm joking.
I mean, I'm a total weirdo recluse, Lee. I mean,
Okay.
you know what's funny? I got a phone call last week or an email or something from Mike, and he's like, "What are you doing at whatever time it was of the day?" And I had to work, and I didn't think anything much of it. I just said, "I got to work, man. I'm working." You know. And then I put on my YouTube, and he's talking to you on your show. When did you guys? When did you guys become friends again? I'm like, what the fuck is going on?
We talked it out, and
I'm so confused.
we realized that we went too far.
Okay.
And you know what? For 2 years, we were good friends, and then
Yeah.
some stupid shit happened.
Yeah.
And I always felt bad about it, and I'm glad
Okay.
that it's worked. It's worked out, and it's better to have more friends here than enemies. That's just,
Absolutely.
you know.
What a friendship.
And
What a
I want to
friendship.
remind everybody that not that he doesn't need the help, but Lee Cole has a wrestling channel now, which is doing very, very well.
Yes, sir.
And you know, thank God he got rid of Joe Lowry. Anyway, Lee Cole, we love you out there. This is Long Island's #1 pro wrestling
I knew he'd get
broadcast.
that out. I knew he'd
Monte
get that
The
out.
Pharaoh.
we got to get the truth out, and thank God
Okay,
you got
take
rid of
care,
him.
my
I
man.
mean,
All right, my friend.
you're back
I had
in
a great
business.
time. Thank you.
All right, we'll see you guys at 9 o'clock. We love you all, Jimmy.
You've been watching This Week in Wrestling, and until shortly with the Mass Superstar Bill Eadie. Later.